All right, everybody, welcome back to the Friday Night Prepper Pre-Party Show. We are got a good show planned for you tonight. I'm very excited about my guest, which I'm going to introduce here in just a second, although I'm pretty sure most of you know him. Let's give people just a little bit of time to get through the ads and the notifications and whatnot. And in the meantime, if you are having any audio problems, let me know, please, ASAP, before we get too far into this. But I think we're good because we had a pretty good test backstage. And a couple quick rules for if you're brand new to the channel and you're not familiar with us. There's just a couple rules I have for this channel. No racism, no sexism, please. Be kind to the moderators. They give their time freely. If you'd like to have your channel promoted, just say something to the moderators. We're happy to do that. Try to, it's okay to engage in some discussion there in chat, but just be respectful to each other. That's all we ask. And I have, I think Penny Pincher Prepper and I are going to be live on Sunday. We were going to meet last Sunday. We rescheduled. So we will get you that information sometime later on this weekend. So look for that. It's on Sunday night. And I think that's it for my announcements. Let's go ahead and introduce our guest. Welcome, first time to the channel, but we've been in communication through Instagram and other things like that before. Pete, how you doing?
Doing very good, amigo, and thank you for having me on tonight.
My pleasure.
It's been a while. We've been trying to figure out the schedules.
Absolutely, and it's an honor to have you on here. I'm a big fan of your content, and I think on many things we see eye to eye. So let's start with your content there. So what got you started?
Well, it's funny. My dad was a Korean War guy, and he always had a philosophy: the Russians were eventually going to get us. You know how that. And with the irony is, they're actually a problem again. However many years later.
Yep.
But we were always camping. He tried to take me out of the city as much as possible, and I guess we were preppers, but we didn't call it that. Mm-hmm. He put me in Cub Scouts and the whole 9 yards. And so being ready for things just made sense. I went to college way up north and got caught in my first whiteout blizzard. And I had camping gear with me, which, I parked in a parking lot of a Walmart or whatever at the time. Yep. And I was like, yeah, this is good stuff. And it just started evolving from there. Of course, I moved back to the Gulf Coast, and Hurricane Harvey was like Hurricane 9 for the family. So, really, I was a weather prepper, and then things just kept evolving from there.
Mm-hmm. And where can people find you? I know you're on YouTube. We got the link for that in the description down below, and we'll put it up a couple times. It's also scrolling across the bottom there on the stream. But where else can people find you besides YouTube?
So you can find me, as you said, on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm actually on X or /Twitter, whatever we call it now, and on TikTok. And the Chinese government, I've gone after the Chinese government on TikTok. They have not kicked me off, although they probably will burn my phone at some future point. Yeah, and I probably am not on X as much as I should be because, as we had chatted previously, when I first went on Twitter, they just crushed my channel within 6 months. Mm-hmm. And I left the channel open, but I rarely posted. And now Elon and his team, they've changed the algorithm, and it's a little more balanced, a little more Wild West too. So you're going to start seeing more content on there going forward.
Awesome. Yeah, let's actually, you know what? Let's just go right into that because we were talking about that backstage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know we've got a lot of people in chat who are also content creators. So we were talking about, the struggles with the different platforms. And right now, there was a time in my content creation where Instagram was very good to me. I was gaining followers like crazy. My reels were getting shown. And I'm on the naughty list now, and I can't get any traction. Like I think I'm gonna have to post, little kitties doing funny things for the next 4 weeks to get out of the naughty list. I don't know, but how are you doing over there? How's Instagram?
So Instagram specifically. So I was doing well on Instagram, and I was kind of hit and miss. I didn't, because of my schedule at work. it was hard for me to really take the time to dig in and figure out where the little tweaks were, but I would from time to time and make adjustments. And I was doing great, and all of a sudden I got put in jail for 2 weeks because I went after child trafficking in Texas.
No.
Which, as you know, is a very big thing. It's real.
Yeah.
And they put me in jail for 2 weeks. The same video went viral on 2 other channels. And when I say viral,
Right.
on one platform, it had over 1 million views.
Yep.
And I got squished on Instagram, and that made absolutely zero sense. So I kind of floated for a while. Now, YouTube's smacked me on the head a few times, but usually they'll get me for something kind of innocuous.
Mhm.
And then I have to do the class and, symbolically pout for a while and then, whatever,
Yeah.
moving on from there. But Instagram did squish me for something that made no sense.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that incident, and it's so weird. It's what they'll pick on Instagram is really sad and frustrating. And the thing is, visually, it's an amazing platform. Like I want to spend more time on there. I like the way it looks, but I don't like the way that they're treating people.
No, and I don't understand the logic here because whether any individual like what do you call them, moderators or administrator of that system likes or dislikes content, if you're not expressing go burn something down or something horrendous,
Right.
these conversations, one, they're good for the community. People need to have these conversations. We need to get a little uncomfortable with certain subjects without going over the edge. But at the same time, from a business standpoint, you'd think a little bit of controversy would actually spur more views. People would go and say, man, I got to listen to what that guy just said. And let me read the comments. So to me, it makes no sense why they would be like this with us.
And I'll take it one step further. Like so I'm a therapist. Most of my audience knows this. Instagram has been one of the worst offenders for promoting to young people bad content that they shouldn't be seeing, right? And what I'm talking about specifically here is like stuff for like eating disorders and kids doing dangerous things, stunts and challenges and things like this, right? So today I was actually just like scrolling through there, and I stumbled across like this basically an eating disorder video, and it's like, okay, so you're not targeting this stuff that you should be targeting. If you're going to censor it all, why aren't you censoring that? Me showing wood carving with a pocket knife, like, I don't get it. I don't get
question,
why
was that video about the disorder, was it along the lines of, hey, this is how you manage it, this is why it's dangerous to be like this?
No.
Or was it more inciting people
It was this poor girl was like paper thin. Like, as a therapist, I can tell you she's in dangerous territory. Like,
I can imagine.
of like having organ issues and stuff like that, because your body will eventually start to shut down. And she was in that weight class and was talking about how wonderful it is to be so skinny. And of course, all the comments, how did you do it? And yeah, I know.
That doesn't, and Marilyn Monroe was a size what, 9?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. If you, I know it's not about like pleasing men. I know it's not about that, but
no.
But the thing is, like, if you ask men, most guys would say, "I like a girl who's got a little bit of, muscle and meat."
Well, I think it's
I
also
know it's not about us.
No, but people need to understand the body types are different.
Yeah.
And this, you're absolutely right. That trend, it kind of feeds off those teenage insecurities. But keep in mind, Instagram, Facebook was also the organization that admitted that it was deliberately messing with algorithms to create conflict.
Yep.
For instance, I have friends from college that we don't share political views.
Right.
They would post their kids, dogs, cooking. They'd post 20 videos, and I'd post 20 videos, for friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't see any of those.
Right.
But if either of us posted, Trump or Biden or politics or something controversial, that's the one thing in a week I'd see from them.
Yep.
And I didn't realize how devious that platform was until they got called out for it. They got caught and they had to go to Congress. So, the fact that you're saying this is heartbreaking, man.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah. So
That's
I don't know who's calling the shots there, or if they've just like let the AI take control of it or what, but it's been frustrating. And like I said, I really do like the way the platform looks, and I
yeah.
want to spend more time on there. But if you're going to punish me every time I go on there because I'm doing wood carving videos, I'm not going to suggest your platform,
No, and do they explain like, hey, you need to put a disclaimer, knives are dangerous or something? Nothing.
No, it says the first warnings you'll get says like your content can't be shown to anyone, and that a couple times it said we consider these regulated goods. So you consider a tool that's used for carving wood and cutting food to be a regulated good. Okay,
So it wasn't like you were showing a battle axe or
right.
some
No,
other contrivance of
I don't even
war.
show firearms. I mean, I have firearms. I like firearms, but I don't show them on any of my social media, to be honest, because I know that's stepping into another territory that they don't like. They just don't like. Um, so I don't know. So that's Instagram. Let's switch over to Twitter to give a contrast to it. So Pete and I were talking backstage, and I said, before Elon Musk bought Twitter, it was very, very lopsided politically, right? Did he freeze? Uh-oh. Did I freeze? Can you guys hear me? See this? See this? This is what happens, guys. We were talking about the platforms. Oh no. Did I freeze or did it freeze us both? All right, I think it was Pete. All right, let's give him let's give Pete a chance to get back in. Sorry. So while we're waiting for that, I swear we did that. We did that. Unbelievable. He just freeze frame cheesing. Okay. Yeah, they smited him. Anyways, let's talk about Twitter for a second. So before Elon bought Twitter, there was it was really lopsided politically, right? It was an echo chamber, and that's never a good thing anyways. We've talked about that on this channel before, that like we have to be able to disagree with each other to not grow apart and have this like political divide among our country, right? So we have to talk to each other. We have to listen to each other, even if you don't like what the other person is saying. You have to do that. And Twitter had created this atmosphere where that just wasn't happening. And in fact, so much so that conservative voices were being censored on Twitter. Then Elon bought the platform, and then all of a sudden it became more even. Right now, it feels uneven if you were part of that echo chamber, but it's not. If you go on there and you honestly approach with an open mind and you scroll, you're going to see it's about 50-50 conservative, liberal, right wing, left wing, however you want to conceptualize that. But the interesting thing was that all of a sudden these other creators and people who were just had accounts and stuff started saying that Pete, you're probably gonna have to load back in through the studio. I didn't kick you out. I think YouTube kicked you out. Yeah. So then all of a sudden everybody like started getting followers, and like your posts were getting seen by people, and it was like, okay, that's confirmation that there was a suppression of conservative voices. But then there's more. So Project Veritas, right? So if you guys know who that is, they did an undercover sting operation where they took out, not like that kind of takeout. They wined and dined some Twitter employees and got them talking. And these Twitter employees basically admitted that they could censor, they were given free reign to censor anybody that they disagreed with. So the platform was horribly misrun. And if you don't like that there's some free speech on there now, well, that's what America was built on, that we have the right to disagree, right? I do think we could be better at being respectful about that. And that's something we have to learn, because social media is still relatively new, right? So we have to figure that out. And you are going to see some more of that on Twitter than you would on other platforms. But you're also going to have more of a voice. You're not just automatically going to be censored and suppressed just because somebody that's behind the buttons disagrees with you. So I've done really well on Twitter, actually. And I don't consider myself to be either uber conservative or uber liberal. I'm actually consider myself moderate. And there's some issues that I'm very conservative on, and there's some issues that I'm actually pretty liberal on. So I've done well on there. I've got 25,000 followers on Twitter now. And one of the interesting things that I noticed was we definitely offended the internet, Pete. One of the things that I noticed was once I crossed that barrier of 25,000 people, all of a sudden I really started getting boosted by the algorithm. Like they started showing my stuff to a lot more people. So there's this weird stuff behind the grid, you know, behind the controls. Here he comes. He's coming backstage. There's weird stuff that goes on behind the controls that we as the content creators don't really have a lot of control over, and it can be pretty darn frustrating.
Hey, can
Are
you
we
guys
back?
hear me right?
We gotcha.
All right. Yeah, apparently we offended the internet because I can get on Google, but I can't get on your channel.
Yeah. That's weird. I think that we definitely ticked somebody off, and that was a warning message.
Yeah, they did. We offended the interwebs.
Yeah.
And see, ladies and gentlemen, this is why redundancy. Because I got the cell phone, I got the work phone, and another laptop. So I was like, I'm gonna come back.
Yeah. I knew you'd get on. I knew you'd get back. All right. So let's, in the interest of not having our stream completely shut down, let's change the topic. So
sounds like a winner.
Yeah, who inspired you when you were when you decided to go into content creation and you were gonna, you know, help people learn about prepping and stuff like that? Who inspired you?
So, you know, when I first went on and I started really looking at some of the preparedness folks, you know, the first ones, you see the big guys first, right? So, you know, Angry Prepper was one of the first ones. And I think at the time I started following him, he had 25,000 people on the channel. And he was on a tear on the second video, and he, you know how he gets, and he just, and I'm in tears. I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I'm like, this guy has no filter. I like him.
Yeah.
And then I started chatting with people, and from there, I ran into Magic Prepper, and then Hudson, then Cold War, and I found you along that path, and we just, as you kept creating and jumping into different chats, you wound up meeting different people. It was kind of a roundabout route, but actually, it was my kids, my oldest daughter, actually. They after the hurricanes, she was already an adult. She had her first apartment, and I was giving her and the cousins tips on what to do. And she said, "Dad, you should really put this on the internet. Like somebody's going to benefit from you."
There you go.
And I said, "Yeah, I'll get around to it one day." And then, you know, when the Rona hit, I'm like, "Well, shoot, now's a good time as any to do." And I was part of a preparedness group back in Houston along the Gulf Coast, Facebook group. So we'd post little videos over what we were doing, but nothing like what I'm doing now or what we're doing as a community.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, for me, it was Rogue Preparedness was a big part of getting me started. I really was a big fan of her channel. And actually, she was the first person that I collaborated with. I think I only had like 400 subscribers. And at that time, she had like 15,000 or something. And I was, of course, I was active on her channel commenting and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, let me throw this out. I'm nobody. I'm a very small channel at this point. I'm still a very small channel. And she was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And I was like, wow, this is really cool that somebody that was 15,000 subscribers was willing to collaborate with me, who only had 400
this little channel. Yeah.
Yeah. And I vow to remember that, you know, if I someday get to be 100,000 subscribers or whatever, I want to be able to keep my integrity and be just as kind to other people that are smaller channels as she was to me.
Oh yeah, and I think that's part of the community, and I think it speaks a lot to the way we should try to be with one another. You know, when you have large channels, you know, reach out to a smaller creator and go, "Hey, you have some cool content. Do you want to come on?" That's pretty cool. And like you, I've tried to do that. As a matter of fact, just earlier, now I can't remember who it was. When I opened the computer to log in here, I was a little early. And I just, on my feed, came two preparedness channels. One had 150 subs, and they were doing candle making, something really cool, actually.
Yep.
And I have to look and see who it was. And I made a point of subbing, and then I commented, hey, looking forward to your channel. Best of luck. You know, feel free to reach out. And I think what you're talking about really speaks to the way we should try to be. Because in my mind, it's kind of like zombies. The more people you save, the less zombies you have to deal with.
That's right.
By the same token, I know this sounds terrible, but by the same token, the more people we can at least get thinking in terms of preparedness, the less people we have to worry about.
Yeah.
And I really believe that. I really, especially during Hurricane Harvey, just some of the things people did, and they got hurt or they got sick or whatever happened to them. And I looked and said, that wasn't necessary. Had you done some very, very rudimentary things, that outcome could have been different. So, I mean, if you and I talking here tonight and somebody does something at home that may save them from harm, you and I did a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I you know, we'll get to a couple of things that to recommend here for people getting started, of course. I saw some good comments here. I'm gonna scroll back a little bit. We've got a great audience out there. Thank you, everybody. I know I didn't get to say hi to everybody when you came in. There was one really good comment here about, see if I can find it now. This one here.
It looks like it'll let me back in on my laptop. I'm going to jump over real quick, so I'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Give me just.
Yep. So, Canajan, I hope I said that right. Canajan, John. The ridiculous thing is the communities. Okay, we got Pete back here. Welcome back.
Success.
Yep. Your 10-minute timeout was over, I guess.
I offended the interwebs.
Yeah. So I hope I'm saying this correct. Canajan, the ridiculous thing is that the communities surrounding prepping are the people who help other people, and that's not part of the big media's agenda. Yeah, I agree.
That's
so
true.
We get villainized, right? So we I think they like to portray preppers as, you know, paranoid and crazy and tinfoil hat and all of these other things. And maybe sometimes we do get a little bit, you know, a little bit on the wild side. Sure, we think we can own that, right? But we also do a lot of education to help people with things like you talked about hurricane, and I just did one on tornadoes not too long ago.
Right.
And you know, I'm always talking about like how to financially prepare for recessions and things like that. And I got one coming out next week, which we probably can get into this a little bit about the world situation and, you know, what's really within your control. What can you do? Because it's no good to throw up your hands and say, well, there's nothing I can do about that, right? Like that's not a wise decision. But, and we also do a lot of charity. We also give away a lot of stuff. We also help, you know. So you told, I don't want to put you on the spot. You told me some stuff that you're doing backstage, and I knew you were a good guy, you know.
Well, I try. I'm not a saint, though.
You know, nor am I. And I'm a better person than I was 30 years ago. But I'm still not. I still got work to do. You know.
I think you learn as you get older. You know, they always say older and wiser. You know, you kind of start reflecting back and go, wow, I could have done that better had I known this.
Yeah.
So if I can teach someone else who's young, so they avoid the mistake, that's a good thing.
Yeah. And family too, right? Like, so as I've gone down this journey, right? Like I've always, like you said, we wouldn't have called it prepping growing up, you know. This was just stuff you learned. And my dad was an 82nd Airborne, and he was in some survival school stuff and taught me some stuff. And I learned other stuff from Boy Scouts. And my mom grew up really poor. Her mom was a survivor of the Depression. So I learned some stuff from them. And this was just common sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, it's interesting you say that. So my dad had me late in life. He was a Depression era kid.
Oh, wow.
So that was, now that you mentioned, that was a bit of a unique thing because he was born in the early 1930s. So, having him tell me, oh yeah, during the Depression, they were poor on the islands anyway. So he's like, yeah, they caught queen bees. Like they put on this little thing, they caught bees, got the living Jehoshaphat stung out of them, took the bee back and basically put it in a box, and the bees came. And then they collected honey. He said, I made a nickel a jar for the honey. It was unfiltered, like it was perfect honey.
Raw honey, yeah.
And learning, I think that generational knowledge is important because I think our society has gotten very screen oriented and impatient. But if we can reach that same audience doing this, that's important, I think.
Yeah. And I think what's really cool is like every channel brings something different to it, right? So Maccabeus, one of my moderators here, he just did a series of videos not too long ago showing people basically how he made an oil lamp out of just like stuff that was lying around.
Really?
Oh yeah, I don't have that questions. Kind of. Yeah, we actually, Maccabeus, if you're still here, can you link those vids? That would be awesome for everybody to see.
I have been saving this for that very purpose.
Awesome.
I need to. This was actually a very good bourbon, by the way.
Yeah.
But
is that Bullet? What is that?
No, Blanton's. I actually found a Blanton's, which my brother and I killed. But that being said, I was like, that's a really pretty bottle, but I don't want to set the house on fire.
Yeah,
I've been admonished about my pyrotechnic ways. So
yeah,
yeah. If we have a good video, I'll use that a lot.
Yeah, and I can't. I'm not handy like that. I can't think of things like that, right? Like I can show you some plants that you might be able to use for medicine, and I'm pretty decent gardener, and right, like so we all have these different things. And Lee, Cold War Prepper, it's Canadian with the J. I'm sorry, my apologies. Lee, Cold War Prepper. If you've never seen his videos, he's got a lot of stuff about like managing hygiene in a post-apocalyptic situation, and specifically like what to do with number 1 and number 2. Like you can't just bury them in the backyard. You got to have a long-term plan.
No, right? and people don't realize in very bad situations the hygiene and illness will kill way more people than zombies and marauders and whatever other boogeyman we come up with. So yeah.
Okay, I think Mac posted that. So if you guys are so, and if you're watching this on replay and you can't click that link for some reason or whatever, just go to his channel and you should be able to find it. Yeah, that was really cool. And there's another one too. I'll show in a second, and I'll link in a second. But yeah, everybody's bringing something different to the table. I really like your news reports that you give, and you give, in my opinion, you give a very neutral, like these are the facts. This is what one side's saying. This is what this side's saying. And what do you think?
I try to keep it balanced, and obviously we, like you and I had chatted beforehand, we all have our personal inclinations, our biases. Like it's just normal human nature that we have a certain viewpoint, but I try to give people what I hear and then give them an action item, and I guess that's the engineer in me. If you have an incident or any kind of situation, it's important at the end of that to say, well, what was the lesson learned, or what is the action we take? So either we repeat a success or we prevent the failure. How does this occur?
Yeah.
And there's certain videos I've actually shown my failures. One was actually in a tactical bay, and I was using a single point sling on a carbine. And I said in the beginning of the video, I don't like this sling, but we're going to try it. And not 3 minutes into the video, I cleared the rifle. I did something. The thing went down, hit me in the birdies, and down I went in the video. And I shared that with the audience. I'm like, okay, so clearly this sling is going to the trash. I don't like it. But this is how we learn. And if my mistake can save you an injury or $50, hey, great.
Yeah. And it is important to show our little goof ups and things like that, right? Like there's there's gardening channels that will, if you look at their videos, you will think like this person never makes a mistake. And I promise you, every gardener has failures. There's no such thing as a gardener who doesn't have that doesn't have plants die. They die.
Oh yeah. And my daughter got me a hydroponic system, a little one that you put the aero garden and you put the little things in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew these beautiful little herb plants, and then they ran completely amok.
Yeah.
And the next thing I knew, I had a jungle. Then one of the dogs took a plant down and ran around with it, and it was just a hot mess. So that's now on the shelf while I figure out how to not repeat that error.
Yeah, but it happens, and I like when a channel shows that and says like, "Hey, look I've got tomato blight. Now I'm going to research this and try to figure out what happened, and this is what some of the solutions are. But I'm not just going to show you my perfect tomatoes and pretend that like I don't have problems too, you know?"
Yeah, no, most definitely. And again, this is have you seen the movie 10 Cloverfield Lane?
Is that the one where they're in the bunker?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you see that is the type of prepper that they portray in the media. Yeah. And I don't want to spoiler alert anyone who hasn't. I would, if you haven't seen it, I would watch it. It's not gory or anything. It's more of a thriller. Would that be a good way? Like a dramatic thriller.
Yeah.
But the way they portray him is the way a lot of people think we are as a community. You'll see the people hoarding toilet paper, which is a continual joke for me now.
Yeah.
And during COVID, and people are in the internet go, "Oh, these preppers." No, that's not a prepper. That's a fool.
Yeah.
Because if that baboso knew better, they wouldn't have done that. They would have already had. And they'd be just filling in little gaps, not filling a truck with TP. But it's, if we can change that interpretation of how the community is, I think that's valuable.
Yeah. And it takes people posting, some of it is like the emergency preparedness stuff. Cause I think that's like the thing that gets people started. Like, okay, we had tornadoes last night. I didn't know what to do. What do I do next time? Right. We had Hurricane Harvey. Like, okay, this caught me off guard. I don't want to feel like that again. What can I do? So that gets people started, I think. And then I think most people are going to naturally go down that path of like, well, what if we did end up in a war on the United States territory, right? Like, what if the dollar collapses, right? Like those are the bigger scenarios that most people don't want to talk about. But when you start down the path of like storms and recession and stuff like that, it's going to take you there anyways,
And it's funny you had mentioned, the kids, the younger generation, and my children are young adults now, and all of them, or two are married, one's engaged, and my middle son in particular, the soldier, his wife's mom is a homesteader.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's actually, someone jumps in my channels and, we chat and whatnot. So she's like-minded to all of us. And so when I brought my daughter-in-law a food saver and said, "Oh, this is what we can use to preserve food since you have the baby. That way you don't have to." And I put it from a pragmatic standpoint. You have the baby at the house. Now you don't have to go out as often, make one big trip, freeze everything, and you've got food for weeks. And she goes, "Ooh, I can use this for pantry items. And then we can preserve rice for months."
There you go.
You could see the wheels going. And I'm like, "Oh, you are my favorite kid right now." And you get them thinking like that.
Yeah.
And what's funny, they wound up getting PCS. They wound up getting transferred from one base to another. And when her friend, she said, "Hey, you guys take the frozen products because they won't survive the move." And they came and they pulled these bags all labeled out. And they go, "Who did this?" And so she explained the whole process. And she said her two best friends at the old base they're both moms, have now bought food savers and are repeating what she taught them.
I love that.
So every person we teach may touch 2, 3, 5 others. We don't know.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Mr. Zero, and by the way, folks, if you have questions, go ahead and throw them in caps so I can catch them. You all have great dialogue going there, so I'm trying to catch it as we go. I know I'm lagging a little bit behind the chat, but Mr. Zero says in some cases it's best to be Grayman. Definitely. For us who are content creators, obviously we gave up that option. But for the purpose of trying to do some good and expand awareness and help people. I think you can also be gray man, but not be a lone wolf, right?
Yeah.
I think it's smart to be cautious about like, okay, so I have some food stored back and I don't want everybody to know this. I have some
Right.
medicine stored back and I don't want everybody to. You're absolutely very wise, Mr. Zero, to be thinking like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And in today's day and age, you never know how
Yeah.
people will be. I'm fortunate in that I'm in a smaller city out surrounded by what's essentially farmland and, solar fields and drilling rigs. I saw all sorts of weird stuff. Not a lot of population, and everyone who's here is very outdoorsy.
Hmm.
So, we have very unofficial, I guess what you call a mag, a little groups where folks who, the minute we had that power outage, that freeze, and because I'm near a hospital and a police station, they kept my side of the city up.
Okay.
But a lot of other people went dark, but some of our phones still worked. And people were texting, and then one big text came out from this group of coworkers who are all hunters, outdoorsmen, preppers, it's homesteaders. And they said, "Hey, so and so's wife is sick and they just lost power. Does anyone have 2 green cans of propane?"
Hmm.
And I replied, "I do, but I'm on the other side of town." Someone said, "I'm 2 blocks down. I'll get it to him." And immediately the text chain started with this little group of friends we have.
Hmm.
And it even though obviously it got resolved in a few days, it was refreshing to see that.
Yeah,
But at the
absolutely.
same time, you want to respect their privacy because I am out there. So, I try not to expose what too many people are doing or give away secrets. Yeah, it's a balancing act, but it's a good point what Mr. Zero says.
Yeah, and I think this here is where I was going next with this is it is good to have good neighbors, and I'm very blessed that I have some great neighbors. And uh, people sometimes will ask, well, how do I find other people that I can trust? Well, some of it you are going to have to take a little bit of a chance, but there's a way to do it where you mitigate that risk to some extent. So if Pete was my neighbor and we didn't know each other, maybe it starts with like, he's mowing his lawn and I go up and I say, hey, how are you doing? Did you hear we might be getting a hurricane next week? Right.
Right.
And I see how he reacts to that. And I might say, hey, do you need anything? You got enough flashlights and stuff? And then, you just kind of start in some conversation little by little. I'm not necessarily going to tell him how many firearms I got in the house, how much Augustin Farms I got in the
Right.
house. Right. But maybe we get there over the course of time, right? That we start talking about some current events. Are you worried about this thing? Are you worried about that thing? And then you start realizing, okay, this person's probably like-minded. Maybe I can trust them a little bit more. So we have some friends that we have mutual agreements with where if there's a problem and I need to evacuate, I can go to them. And if they have a problem and they need to evacuate, they can come to us, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Those are absolutely important conversations to have. A true story, actually. One of my coworkers, who I worked with now in 3 different cities, and I knew he loved clay shooting and pistols. He was kind of a Second Amendment guy, and that was a conversation topic for us. And so we both wind up in this part of Texas on projects, and there's a meeting going on, and it was during the tail end of the shutdowns from Rona, but they were having the riots at the
Hmm.
same time because of the election and all that.
Hmm.
And somebody, the security guy or safety guy, saying, "Hey, don't wear company logo shirts, don't do, common sense things." And then at the table, very quietly, I said, "So basically, just be a gray man."
Hmm.
And everyone was like, "Oh, okay, yeah," like nobody got it.
You
And
know what
my friend of 12 years looks and goes, and he gave me this look, and I'm like, "Oh, you understood where I was going with that. And you're the
Yeah,
only one who got it in the room."
yeah.
Turns out he's been a prepper and he had mapped resource locations in 2 different cities,
Yeah,
literally on a paper map. He's like, "I actually have a paper map of that city.
yeah.
I know where all the water, whatever is." And I'm like, "Dude." And then they transferred him again. So,
Oh,
that's our life. And I'll
well,
tell you
I'm
what,
I'm a firm
relocating as a
believer though.
prepper is tough.
Yeah, well, and I'm also a firm believer though that it's nice to have some people in your group that aren't in your state, that aren't in your area, right? Like,
No, agreed.
not everybody should be concentrated in the same area, you know?
No. Actually, Harvey was a great example of that. Because at the time, I lived on the very far northwest side of Houston, so it flooded all around us, so we could not get out or in very safely. But we still had power for whatever reason because of a fire station. That's another thing, by the way, when you relocate, you should do some research on your local resources because certain places get more priority than others.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
I had guys who were in my old unit or guys who were my coworkers whose houses got devastated, and we didn't know because we lost cell phone for a while. So, not all being in the same place because a calamity like that,
Mhm.
now you're all in a bind.
Mhm.
My brother still lives on the coast, and I'm out here on the high plains of Texas, so to say.
Mhm.
So our general agreement is if there's an emergency here, i.e., I don't know, a tornado or chupacabra or something, I go to him.
Yeah.
If they get hit with a hurricane where he is and it gets ugly, he's already made arrangements to get his kiddo to, if nothing else, at least his daughter to me,
Yep.
and she stays with us so they can deal with the house.
Yep.
So just having an extended network is
Mhm.
important, and we have to do that to be successful in business. And
Mhm.
engineers do it all the time because we're constantly trading. Hey, that guy flipped the crane over. That's not a good idea. Um, Same token, you can have those networks of information and backup if you need
Mhm.
them.
Mhm. Yeah, my stepdaughter is she lives many miles away, and she's in her early 30s. She knows that chances if there's something really bad, she can't get to us, but she knows where she's supposed to go,
Right.
and she knows that there's some people she's supposed to pick up along the way.
Okay. See, and that's valuable too. And that's, if you think about it, that's almost a communication shutdown plan.
Hmm.
Because if you know, hey, if something happens, you go pick up, even in high school,
Yep.
I told my kids when they were all high schoolers, so I'm just like, look, if there's an emergency, the oldest one had the car,
Hmm.
you take the old pickup truck, you go find your brothers,
Hmm.
and you go to the house. And if you can't go to the house, go to, I don't know, Panera or whatever
Yep.
place I told them, and I will find you there.
Right.
And we kind of collaborated before the storm hit. What route does mom normally take to work? What route does dad take to work?
Yep.
So we kind of knew where everyone should be.
Yeah. And speaking of, and that's not just for the big stuff too, right? So
No,
like even we were talking about the hurricanes and the tornadoes. We've had fallback plans for that, right? Like things
oh
can
yeah,
happen where you can get separated in a storm.
yep,
So when it's safe to get to the third location, does everybody know where they're supposed to meet back up? Cell phone towers might be shot, cars might not be accessible, right?
right.
So does everybody know where we're supposed to meet? You know?
Yeah, and these are important. That's another reason, like having, and I think you had posted about it. I know I have, but I swear you did too. Physical maps,
Yep. Yep.
and I mean, you could get a GPS with a satellite and all that, which are
If the gr-
expensive, but those
and
will
if
work,
yeah,
cell towers or no.
yeah. But
But
yeah, everybody should have some physical maps
yeah,
in your car and in your bug out bag.
oh yeah, absolutely. And even if you live in a city, for I use Houston, New York. I've lived in a few cities. Um, for example, Manhattan. I recently did a video where I talked about getting from, if Manhattan got shut down, hypothetically, right, to get to Queens, which would be considered the outskirts of the city.
Hmm.
It's the further borough. It was a 4 hour walk, 5 hour walk. So if you're there, but your kid's in school, your husband or wife or somewhere else, are you guys going to meet up? Does husband go get child one and wife get child two?
Yeah.
Knowing that in advance, you kind of know your assignment.
Right.
And if the kids are at home and you know everyone should be at home, then you just get your butt home.
Right. Right.
But yeah,
And
absolutely.
having thinking ahead, multiple different ways to get home, right? So
Yeah.
now I live within only a couple miles of my house. I literally could run home if I had to, which is great. But not too long ago, I had a 20-mile commute, and
Oof.
when I did it, I sat down and I looked at Google Earth and maps and like, okay, I know this main route is going to be a clusterfluff,
Yeah.
it's going to be gridlocked. So what are my backup options? This road might be doable. If this isn't, is this stream? Can I walk down this stream? Can I walk down these railroad tracks? Is there different options? Is there power line? What do they call that?
Oh, the easements.
Easements. Is there power line easements that I can follow? Is there, ways that I can go through without necessarily exposing myself to too many people, right?
Mm.
And so I had like 4 different routes that could take me home. But now I have like 4 or 5 different ways I can get home, but I literally can run home, and it definitely feels a whole lot better.
Oh yeah, and again, I'm in a city where I did the calculation. If I just bebop 2-3 mile an hour walk,
Mhm.
a couple hours I'll be home. Probably faster if I'm moving. I just took the most obvious route as opposed to the little shortcuts. But a city geographically like New York, which is intersected by rivers, you have bottlenecks. In Houston, it's huge geographically. So the downtown area where the offices are, if you live outside what they call Beltway 8,
Mhm.
it's 35 miles.
Yeah.
So at a 3-mile-an-hour walk,
Well, you're talking a 2-day trip then. At that
that's, yeah,
point,
you're looking at an overnight trip. And that's assuming nobody's fighting, nobody's hurting anyone. They're just,
Mhm.
everyone's trying to get home.
Right.
And, at some point you got to rest.
Mhm.
Get hurt, it's going to take longer. You twist an ankle,
Yeah.
you have to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
you know, and you have to factor that in. Knowing the geography of where you are
Mhm.
can really guide the way you prepare. And then it changes because
Yeah.
going from the coast to it's essentially a grassy desert, that was a learning curve for me. And
Mhm.
I'm still struggling trying to figure out horticulture.
Mhm.
Apparently zucchini grows great out here. That makes no sense, but it does.
Yeah.
So actually the college has a horticulture group.
Oh,
So
cool.
I might be reaching out to them this year and say, how the heck did you pull that? How do you grow broccoli out? Like what?
Yeah. Yeah. Zucchini's awesome stuff, man. You can do so much. You can freeze it, you can dehydrate it, you can do all kinds of fun stuff with
Oh
it.
man, and
Yeah.
it goes so well. Sauteed with some scampi. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Now everyone's gonna get hungry in the chat.
Yeah, so speaking of which, coffee first. I did see your comments. If I could suggest something, try sweet potatoes. I've had better luck personally with sweet potatoes than like russet or Idaho or your regular spud type potatoes. And sweet potatoes, the leaves are edible as well. They kind of taste like spinach if you saute them.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. That is really interesting. I love sweet potatoes. I'm a
Mhm.
big fan of those.
Yeah.
But have you done the spuds in a bucket experiment?
I have not. I've only grown like regular spuds a couple times, and like I said, I've had much better luck with sweet potatoes personally.
I did them in a bucket with the kids when they were
How
in
many did you
junior
get?
high. We cut up 3 and we had about 17. And I just kept adding dirt and watering it. And because I was down on the coast, we got natural rain anyway. So they grew very well. But the potatoes made no sense. I had a red and a white on the same vine. Yeah, it was just really weird. I don't know how I did that. They were probably radioactive, but we made potatoes.
Yeah.
The kids got a kick out of it though.
Yeah, and the cool thing about stuff like that is it's sustainable once you've got it and you mastered it, you can
Mhm.
save your potatoes and then grow the next crop and that kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
love crops like that you basically become self-sustaining.
Oh yeah, 100%. And
Garlic is like that as well too.
really, I have not tried garlic.
Mhm. Yeah, if you grow a good variety of garlic, basically save a couple of your biggest ones and let them. You got to fully dry them out, and then when it comes time for the fall, you plant those in the fall. Just break those up, and that's your new seed for your next year, and it's very
No kidding.
sustainable. Yeah, it'll. I had garlic that was the same variety. I had grown like 14 years in a row, and then finally, I don't know exactly what happened. It like weakened, and I got a really like mild yield crop, and I was like, oh, this is not good. My genetics on this are played out or whatever.
Yeah.
And the next year, my crop failed, so I had to start a new one. But
That's interesting to know.
14 years off the same original 3 bulbs.
Garlic clove. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
do you dry it and then take the cloves and separate them into the
Yep.
dirt? And
Yep.
then you layer, and then when they sprout, more
Yeah,
dirt, more
so you're gonna
water?
plant it like late fall before the first frost,
Right.
and the pointy end is up, and the fuzzy end is down.
Right.
Couple inches into the soil, and you're gonna separate it by basically like a hand width apart. And then cover it up loosely with dirt. You could put a little layer of mulch over it, and then just like over winter, it might come up out of the ground. You'll see some of the stalks come up. If it snows, it should be fine. They're very tolerant to cold weather and freezes and things like that. And then you harvest it in the late spring when the top leaves start to turn brown and like fold over, and it looks like it's starting to
wilting.
die.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it's ready to
No
harvest.
kidding.
Yeah.
Huh. I
And
really need to try that.
Yeah, garlic's fun. And you'll also get, there's a little, it's the flower of it, but it's called escape. And it looks like a little tiny bulb too. You'll get that like early spring. Cut those out, and you can eat those. It's like a delicacy. And
Really?
yeah, and by cutting it, the bulb will get even bigger. So yeah,
That's
garlic's
pretty
fun.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And stuff like this, I didn't even know that about the garlic.
Yeah, and I'm married to a chef, by the way, so like
garlic comes in handy then.
Yeah, and I eat well. There's a reason why I'm never going to be skinny like that.
No, I like snacks too much. That's why I go to the gym the way I do, because if I don't, it'll end badly for me.
Yeah, I have to keep walking. Exactly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's see if I missed any questions here or anything like that.
No,
you didn't see any
great comments in there. I'm rolling back. Macabus said, I bought mine locally from an Amish surplus sale.
Yeah, he's got.
Oh no, he's talking about the solar panels.
Yeah, he's got a good solar setup.
That's cool.
Lee's got a couple buckets of potatoes growing in the backyard, so he might be a good resource for that.
Oh yeah. And he also said, whatever soil you use for your strawberries is great for potatoes.
Okay. That's good to remember.
Yeah. And Canadian, if you have that much garlic, no vampire worries.
That's right. That's right.
Unless they're an Italian vampire, then you might have a problem.
Yeah. Oh, and Shireen popped in. So, all right. So Shireen's, I'm just going to sidebar here for a second. If you guys haven't seen Shireen's latest video, she's got a flamethrower. And it's flipping awesome, man. You got to check it out.
A flamethrower would be good. Like I said, I've been admonished about pyrotechnic fun at the house. I used to play with explosives as far as my work, and my wife's like, "Yeah, you're going to set the house on fire. That's enough of you."
So I actually got a company contacted me and wanted to send me a flamethrower to review, but I live in a city, so like I have nowhere. I don't have any access to like where I could go and film with this unless I drive really, really far to a friend's house, because I can't take it to like a public range, and things like that.
And you can't unless you warn the range. Hey, I'm gonna try this.
They wouldn't go for that here. They wouldn't go for that here. There's no way.
No, see, we're out in the middle of nowhere. Somebody's got a ranch, and they'll say, you know what? I have tarantulas in this area. While you're there, while you're there, the big desert camouflage tarantulas. Not a fun surprise if they show up on your door in the morning.
Yeah. Actually, Dove Season says so. My brother lives down there, Dove Season, and if I was down there, we definitely could go hit the scorpions down there because they got scorpions like crazy. Wayne's got one of those flamethrowers too. Yeah, it looked fun in the video. It looks really fun.
Is it propane, like a propane tank, or is it liquid fuel?
It's liquid fuel. Shireen, do you want to let us know in comments if you're still there? Is it like diesel or what you have to use for that? Or maybe somebody, Wayne's got one too. Maybe he can answer that. But yeah, and she's. I don't want to spoil it, but stay to the end. The ending is awesome. So as we start to wind this one down, what obviously the big elephant in the room. Let's talk about this a little bit, and then we'll
Sure.
we'll, we'll call it. Um, Obviously, everything that's going on overseas is got, I think, everybody on edge, including myself. I'm not like panicking or anxious, but Maccabee says it's gasoline.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Bacon, you got to check that out. Check out Shireen's latest video. She's got a flamethrower in there. It's a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. I'm really enjoying it. Yes. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It takes 0.25 gallons of gasoline in a small tank. Cool. And Wayne says some have a propane fueled one. Okay, cool. Oh, for the pilot flame. Okay. So the stuff that's going on overseas obviously has got everybody a little bit amped up. I would say that I'm paying more attention. I'm watching the news daily, checking for updates and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think this weekend is going to be very telling. If Iran strikes again, we're going to be getting into some pretty crap here.
Yeah, it's I found it interesting. So when October 7th occurred, it occurred during the Sabbath, right? Which has been used before as the day chosen to attack Israel. Friday is kind of, and I may be a little bit wrong, but my understanding is Fridays are kind of like the Sabbath for Islam. That's a special day of gathering. And I find it funny that that was the day Israel went and punched Iran on the side of the head. Right now, I wonder if everyone is trying to figure out what to do next, because this can go so many ways. Iran sending that attack against Israel, and then Jordan, Egypt, four other Gulf states shooting down a lot of them themselves because they wanted no part of it, kind of sent a message like, hey, we're not fans of what's going on. Israel was very targeted in that last airstrike, but my fear, aside from the geopolitical implications over there, if it escalates, and let's just say the two of them go after each other and it doesn't go further, the energy prices are going to go absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
And there will be disruption. It won't be a gouging thing. We just won't have enough product coming to the market as it is. And I think Lee had mentioned it in one of my chats. This is the first time since the 90s that we've had two OPEC nations getting into a shooting war with whoever. The last time actually was Iran and Iraq, which was kind of ironic.
Yep.
But what concerns me, because of our non-vetted border, and again, I'm a family of immigrants myself, but because we don't know who's here.
Right.
You think we had 30,000 in January try to come through Texas, I think, and that they know of. 1% is 300. So 9/11 was pulled off with under 30 people, like 15 in the air and another 15 on the ground. Right. Charlie Hebdo was done with a dozen over in France.
Right.
Imagine what 300 would do.
A lot of damage.
Yes, a lot especially if they're trained and competent and they're not just knuckleheads. And that's something that absolutely disturbs me. Is that they won't come after America directly. They'll do it that way and then do whatever it is they're going to do somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, to give a different metaphor to it, we have in my city, there's an active gang war going on. Maybe there's an active gang war in every city. I don't know, but there's an active gang war going on in my city, and frequently it's always like middle of the night. There's a drive-by shooting, whatever, and they're basically targeting the same neighborhoods back and forth. Right? It tends to stay contained in that. Not to say that like a stray bullet couldn't hit an innocent person, a bystander, but they're tending to stay and targeting each other,
focus with each other.
Right. But a couple weeks ago, something really interesting happened where 3 different neighborhoods got hit at exactly the same time. It was a coordinated assault. So they synchronized. and they chose to hit 3 different houses at exactly the same moment. Now, this is just like street gangs who are dealing in like local street drugs and stuff like that. Imagine if you had people who had a little bit of military training
Mhm.
and their goal is not to like retaliate because their cousin got hit, but their goal is to just cause as much damage as possible and hurt as many
Right.
possible. It would be a night of
That's
sheer terror.
horrifying.
Yeah.
So I actually had posted the original footage of the Moscow attack by ISIS, and they were walking in staggered column. The guy at the back kept looking behind him. He was checking 6. One was dealing with targets on the left, one on the right, and they were very calmly marching through that corridor. Sadly, it got taken down because it was very graphic, which, I get that. But you don't need to actually, what scares me, you wouldn't actually need to do like some massive damage, blow up the Statue of Liberty or something like that, although that would be very symbolic. My fear is, imagine, as you pointed out, look at the protests they had, the pro-Palestine protests, last week, where they blocked like bridges,
Oh, yeah.
airports, overpasses in 15 cities, all on the same day. And these were protesters.
These were mostly peaceful people.
Right. There was some fighting and the usual stupidity, but these were not operations. These were not saboteurs or terrorists. If you did the exact same thing in 15 cities, you wouldn't have to even rack up a lot of destruction or death. You just have to create the perception of that.
Yeah.
And the general public will absolutely have a heart attack. And the government entities, the law enforcement, whoever, will do what they know to do, which is to lock everything down and start hunting them. And that would be an utter disruption. And another one of those reasons you want to be able to hunker down at home or at work if you need to.
Yeah. So people may or may not remember this, but a few years ago in Boston, they had the marathon bombers.
Yep.
Okay. And they basically, when they knew that they had this guy located in the one who lived into like a section of the city, they they wanted to contain him so he couldn't get out of the city. They put the entire section of that city on lockdown. You could not leave your house. It's like one step above martial law,
Yeah. It's frightening. Actually, it's interesting, and I have to send you. See if I can find the picture. While I was still in the Guard, I got to go to a training class where they talked about pyrotechnic devices that do bad things, and I'm trying to watch how I say that. And half of the SWAT team that was helping Boston SWAT from the adjacent town, they were there at the class, and one of them said there were times it was absolute confusion. He said we learned a lot of bad lessons during that incident. The sheriff, the city police, and the SWAT team from the other city were on 3 different frequencies. The state troopers inadvertently gassed one of the SWAT teams because they thought they were the bad guys.
Yeah.
He said it was a hot mess. We almost had blue on blue. They actually, one officer did get killed when that guy drove off. And these are trained people who, because of some technical issue, miscommunicated.
Right.
And the general public, it would be awful. And you would have a martial law scenario. And then what do you do if your kid gets sick?
Yeah.
Well, you can't go to the hospital. They'll pull you over. There are a lot of soft things that could happen in the background. That would be a challenge.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I'm glad that they got the guy, and I'm a big supporter of law enforcement and all of the above. But in retrospect, the legal analysis of everything that happened was was not good. They were basically searching people's homes without warrants, and it could have been a really bad legal situation. Fortunately, the people in that city were very appreciative of the law enforcement and cooperative with it.
And it's tough for the law enforcement, right? Because they have to find the bad guy.
Right.
And, you can knock on a door and someone could come and say, yeah, everything's good here. And they could be a hostage, right? They could have their kid in the back room. though, and that's what frightens me. Them, yeah, they could take pot shots at the military overseas, but there's going to be a response there.
Yeah. And
When
it
you
doesn't get them the media that they want.
no, but you embed into the civilian community
Mhm.
and you start causing chaos, it becomes very hard to extract you, to find them.
Yeah.
And then you have the collateral issue of the public in general being present and in the way. So I think that of all the things that horrifies me more, because if you want to put another country off balance, the fifth column's the way to do it.
Mm. Yeah, that fourth generational guerrilla warfare, and then and of course now we're looking at the fifth generation cyber warfare and drones and stuff like that is the reality too.
Yeah, and we're not even talking about the use of modern devices like a drone.
Yeah. And everybody in the prepper community would love to talk about EMPs. The reality is they don't need an EMP.
Mhm.
It's a lot easier to take down our grid and to screw up our water supplies and cause a lot of havoc with a few strokes of a keyboard, you
Yeah.
know, and they get plausible deniability with that, right? So let's say, just
Right.
hypothetically, we'll say nation XYZ decides they want to do a cyber attack on the United States, and they attack, water treatment plants and things like that. Fuel. Remember, we had the one that with the fuel lines a couple
Oh yeah,
years ago.
the gas line, yeah,
Yeah. So
that they took down.
that kind of stuff can cause a lot of chaos and havoc and whatnot too. Can disrupt medical care. So
Oh,
like
absolutely.
how many people are in a hospital right now that are dependent on the energy in that hospital to keep them alive, right? Things like that. So they could do that, and then the United States may be able to trace it back and say, okay, this attack came from nation XYZ. And then the leaders from nation XYZ, all they have to do is say, well, that wasn't us. That was a rogue group. We're going to help you
Right.
find them,
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, the takedown of the gas line, and then there's speculation about the cargo ship that ran amok in Baltimore. Whether or not that was a deliberate act, I have my own thoughts on that, but
Mhm.
either way, that could be done deliberately, without a doubt.
Mhm.
Actually, during the last couple of weeks, supposedly the Russians tried to hack the Ukrainian airspace radars and wound up disrupting civilian GPS in like France. Like it just and that's the other factor on the cyber war is just because you take virus X and you put it in this computer system, because everything is interconnected,
Yeah.
you don't know if that virus is going to stay there. It may go to a completely different country and wreak havoc on someone else unintentionally. And again, it's playing with fire, using those kind of weapons.
Yeah, Mr. And they'll eventually are going to be turning that stuff over to AI too, which is really going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Mr. Zero, I agree with you, and that's something I'm worried about too. Is that eventually, like us choosing our person to fight out the war is going to come to an end.
Yeah, and unfortunately, these are very old hatreds and rivalries between the various factions over there.
Yeah.
Because the Saudis and the Iranians have an ancient disagreement with them too.
Oh yeah, it's beyond anything. It's way older than the United States. Yeah.
And actually, one of the Hamas leader's sons who defected to the West, so to say, I don't know if that's the right word, actually said if it wasn't for Israel, they would have destroyed all the other countries would be at war right now. They're focused on the Israelis because they're Jews. It's a different faith, so we don't like them. But he said there would be other countries fighting with each other. So there's so many variables.
Yeah. Well, and just to kind of throw one more thing into this too, we were talking about the OPEC nations. So Iran is a big supplier of oil to China and Russia too, I believe, right?
Yeah, they share a huge border.
Yeah. So it's all just one big tangled weave. That's this is like the biggest case of Jenga, the game Jenga.
So the Saudis account for around, at least the last energy sector report I saw. Let me see it. Saudi was 11% of production. Iran and Iraq came in at 9% of global production. So those two countries are side by side. That's a big contributor.
Mhm.
And if Iran is selling to China, which has an absolute thirst for energy,
Mhm.
and again, unintended consequences, right?
Right.
We go and we say, enough of Iran, we go and punch them in the eye in the bar. And
Mhm.
next thing you know, China comes out and throws a chair at us. And I love to use the barroom analogy with the
Yeah.
countries fighting, because it seems like a bunch of drunks sometimes, like there's no reason or logic, but it's frightening to see, does China take that as an existential threat because you're cutting off our energy supply? So now we have to intervene in something.
I think that's how this thing could spiral out of control, right? So like if if Israel decides to like make Iran into a parking lot, then China and Russia have a vested say in that because it affects them.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would hope that, in the I guess in the spirit of Tom Clancyism, there's some backroom deals being made by sounder minds that they're saying, well, why don't we just call it you say this, you say that, everyone gets to save face, and we'll give you preferred shipping for this product, and you get this and you concede that, and they'll stop.
I hope so.
But yeah, again, Israel demonstrated they can penetrate Iran's air defenses. And that could get very hairy. And you never know, it could wind up inadvertently involving Jordan, which is an ally of ours as well. We're very close to that kingdom.
Right.
And they've been very good allies. So now what? It just, it reminds me of World War I.
Yeah.
But they've moved it to a different place.
Yeah, I agree. There's just too many interconnected pieces, and it's all very, very tense right now. All right, let's start to wind this one down. Anything you want to promote? Anything you got coming up real soon?
Well, so I have a series of videos I'm working on, but I actually published my first book. It's a smaller book called Defensive Preparedness. It's actually on Amazon and Kindle. That one's more a kind of like business. It took business concepts and applied it to preparedness, and said this is a different way to think of how you're prepping. If you want a list of what to put in a get home bag, there are 500 of them on Instagram and YouTube. I want people to think of the whole process of being prepared a little differently. And I'm right now drafting another book, and this one will be a fictional book, but I just got the bare bones, so I'm still working on that. And I'm in grad school, so that may have to take a pause for a semester until I kind of get caught up.
Okay. So I'm going to put, I just found it. I'm going to put a link to Pete's book here in chat, and then I'll put it up on the board. This is yeah, of course. This is an affiliate link, by the way. So if you use my affiliate link, I do get a little bit of a commission. You don't have to use my link. It's just, that was the easiest way for me to do this. Yeah. All right. So that sounds awesome, man. Super cool. I have some thoughts about publishing some stuff down the road. It's not on my radar this year, though. So
I'll tell you what, more really time consuming than I thought it would be.
Yeah. I believe it. I know a couple of people who've published books, and I know a little bit about the process. And yeah, it's not easy. And good for you, man. That's a nice accomplishment. That's really cool.
Thank you. It's just one of those things. I just was like, I got to do this. Well, the kids are out, and before grandkids get big enough to spend weekends here, I'm like, I'm going to do it now. I have that window because once the grandkids are big enough for me to have for the weekend, that's going to be my priority. Although you never know, I might create a little author out of one of them. Who knows?
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you, chat. I always end with a message, so hang in there for like 30 more seconds, folks. Make sure you check out Pete's channel. It's scrolling on the bottom of the screen. It's in the description. I know we've put it in chat a couple of times. Definitely go subscribe over there. If you're on Instagram, make sure you give them a follow over there.
They're gonna kick me off again.
Yeah. We definitely pushed some buttons tonight, I think.
I think we did.
And thank you again. Appreciate you coming on. Let me end with a positive message, everybody. So I'm actually going to do a longer video about what I'm going to say. So you're getting the Reader's Digest version for tonight. But when there's something big goes on, right? Like when there's a tragedy that affects a lot of people, it's not uncommon for us to say, I'm offering my thoughts and prayers for them, right? And there are people in the world who will make a mockery of that, and they'll say, oh, great, more thoughts and prayers. That doesn't do anything. But I'm here to tell you, as a therapist, it actually does. I have worked with people who have been the victims of some of these big tragedies that you see on the news. And I'm here to tell you that they have said that one of the things that gave them comfort was that they knew there were people out there that they had never met that gave their thoughts and prayers for them. Okay. So there are people out there who will make a mockery of that, but never underestimate that does have power. Your thoughts have power. And if you're a person of faith, your prayers have power too. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So keep that in your mind, and don't worry about people who make fun of you for that stuff. You know your reward isn't here on this earth anyways, right? So let them do their thing. You do your thing, and be true to your own heart.
And when you survive those hard times, it means you still have work to do.
Yeah.
So take heart.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, brother. I appreciate you so much. You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome back here anytime. If you ever want me to swing over to your channel, I'm happy to do that.
Oh yeah. Well, hopefully once my schedule stops being insane, I'm going to start scheduling the live streams again, because this was great. I really enjoyed this chat.
I enjoyed it too. And thank you, audience, again. Great comments, great questions. And thank you, mods, always for the help you give. We're lucky we have a great audience here that people don't get rowdy, but I like that they're there in case I need them, and they always post links and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, a little rowdiness is okay, but not to where they kick us all off. That would be bad.
Right. That would be bad. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Keep planting your seeds. Keep stacking your silver. This is Pete, the Roaming Prepper, and Prepping with Sarge.